Hi, everyone. This is Coach Sara with Complete Performance Coaching. Happy Monday. We'll see if anyone joins us for the live. So I know we're right in the middle of the day. It's lunchtime. Maybe you can hop on. If not, hopefully you can watch this later. Feel free to type any questions into the chat. So I am one of our mental skills coaches here at Complete Performance Coaching. And today we are going to talk about a very important topic, which is fear, but specifically how you can talk to coaches about fear and blocks. And this is one of the things that I talk with athletes with quite a bit. And it's honestly one of the biggest missed pieces when it comes to working through a fear or a block. So when a gymnast is feeling scared or they're just not going for skills, coaches often know about it, right? Coaches see the athlete struggling, they watch them regress, they see them spending a lot of time maybe standing on a piece of equipment or avoiding a certain skill. The coaches know about it, but it doesn't mean that they understand it. And I will say sometimes coaches don't even know. You might have an athlete who is shaking on the inside and is freaking themselves out, but they still manage to go for the skills. And I'm always super impressed with those athletes. That means they are very, very mentally tough because they can get themselves to go for it, but it doesn't mean they need to stay that way. So sometimes coaches have no idea that an athlete is feeling scared. But if your athlete is dealing with a block, chances are the coaches know about it. And your coach may spend a lot of time, yelling or encouraging or helping your athlete get through that. But just because the coach knows what's going on, it doesn't mean that they understand the full story. So it's really great if your athlete is already working with us, if they are taking the time to work on their mental skills. This is a really, really big part of working through a fear or block. But if the coaches don't know, if they don't understand, then this can really derail your athlete's efforts when it comes to using their own mental skills. So I'm going to take a little drink, a little tickle. So, for example, if we are working with your athlete on a pre-series routine, I always use a series as something that an athlete might be scared of because I was terrified of series when I was a gymnast. So if we are helping your athlete work on their pre-series routine and they have certain things that they do to help them go for the skill, to minimize their worries or their nervousness, this might add a little bit of time for when they actually go for the skill. So if your coach does not know that your athlete is working on their mental skills and that maybe they're going to have a little bit of extra time before they go for that skill, the coach might get really frustrated, right? They might see this athlete as that athlete is stalling. Your gymnast is not going for it. They are taking too much time when in reality, your athlete is taking the steps that they need to actually try and go for the skill and to deal with the feelings that they're having. So then the coach might get frustrated and yell or might push your athlete quicker than they would like or quicker than is helpful. And the coach might think that they're being helpful, but when in reality that they're not. So this is where communication becomes so important to really help coaches understand what your athlete is going through when it comes to a fear or block and how that coach can maybe best help your athlete. And you can probably see where communication is super helpful, but it might be a piece that has gotten missed. Let's face it, coaches are busy. For any of our coaches out there, it's not always easy to talk to you, right? You've got a lot going on. You want to support athletes, but you've also got a lot of gymnasts to manage. So communication with coaches, unfortunately, can get overlooked. So we're going to talk about a few strategies, but just know that communication is something that can be developed. These strategies that we're going to talk about might not work in every situation. If you are at a gym where a coach, maybe it's my way or the highway, they're not open to conversation, it's a much bigger challenge that you're facing. So these tips are maybe for where coaches do seem a little bit more open. Maybe you just haven't taken advantage of having a conversation just yet. And as you might remember, communication, or as you might know, you might still experience this, communication can be hard and scary, but again, it's a skill that can be developed, and it's one that really is so important that we help our athletes work on, because this is talking to the coach now, but it might be talking to a teacher later. It might be talking to a boss. So we need to give them opportunities to learn how to be better communicators and to understand how to communicate effectively when there's a challenge. So by encouraging them to utilize these skills, we really are helping give them a life skill. So we're going to go over a few tips to help your child communicate with a coach about a fear or a block. But again, all of these ideas can be used in other times that you need to communicate. So my first tip is to plan ahead. Consider what you want to say. We're going to talk about the what in just a minute and how you want to say it. Have your athlete practice this out loud, okay? You can be in the room. You can encourage them just to say it into a mirror, but figure out what they want to say and then practice. So depending on the age of your athlete, maybe they can communicate all of it. If you've got a younger athlete, maybe elementary school age, early junior high, maybe you do some of the talking, but you can plan and prepare together. What do you want to have said? So this is really important. It will help everyone feel more comfortable going into the situation if there's a plan and if it's been practiced. And the out loud part is very important of this. If your athlete is older, help them prepare, but really encourage them to do the communicating on their own. If they need you there for support, you stand by quietly, but let them do the talking. This is very, very important. If they're not super comfortable with the talking, they can even read what they've written down, but it's important to verbalize that to the coach, not just hand over a pre-written letter. So plan ahead. Tip 2, consider the timing. So as parents, we all know that there are better times to talk to us about things and less ideal times to talk to us about things, right? While we're in the middle of trying to get out of the house and juggling all sorts of details, that's not the best time to bring up a request, right? At least not in my house. So coaches are the same way. There are times where your coach is more likely to be busy, bothered by some sort of interruption. And then there's times where maybe before practice starts, they're just in the gym, they're kind of dealing with details, but they'd be open to a conversation. You know your coach best. So sometimes this can be what feels like a spontaneous conversation. Hey coach, can I talk to you for a few minutes? But you've thought out ahead of time when that time is. But your coach might be better if you set an appointment with them. So send a text or an email, or coach, can I have 5 minutes of your time after practice today? So consider the timing as well as plan ahead. When that conversation actually happens, and this is what you can think about as you plan what you want to say in this conversation with your coach about your fear or a block, focus on yourself. So for the content of the conversation, remind your athlete to stay focused on themselves and their feelings. This isn't the time to say that the coach yelling isn't helpful. We know that. And you can maybe imply that a little bit, but you don't want to say, when you do this and when you do that, I get more scared and more stressed. So this is, I'm really scared of my series right now. I feel really freaked out and I worry that I'm going to fall anytime I have to get up on the high beam. But as a part of that, again, this is in the planning and the preparation, what you're going to say, highlight what you're doing to work on the issue, right? A coach may not, hopefully they care, but they might not be so encouraged to help you if you just say, I'm scared and I'm freaking out, right? They will be more encouraged and inclined to help if they know that you already are trying to help yourself. This is true for parents, right? You know, if your kid comes to you and they say, well, I would like this, but here's what I'm already doing to work on it, we might be more inclined to kind of give a little bit. So for our athletes who are working with us, this is a very great time to say, not just I'm scared, but I'm working with a mental skills coach on this, or I'm in a mental training community with other athletes and we're really trying to improve on me being more positive or more calm or more confident, okay? So I think coaches like to see that you are working on it. You can also highlight, you know, as part of this training, they've encouraged me to come up with a pre-series routine where I deal with the worries and the nervousness that I feel. So sometimes it takes me a little longer to go for my series, but it's because I'm doing my mental skills. Okay, so you can kind of communicate what you're doing and why and how that's helping you. So the fourth tip, that's the fourth tip, highlight what you're doing to work on the issue. Number 5, depending on the coach and your relationship, you can highlight what's helpful about what they're doing. So remember, don't say, don't do this, or I don't like that, but highlight what's helpful. So for example, I really appreciate how you've been letting me spend time on the low beam before I go to the high beam. So we're giving that positive reinforcement to the coach. So coaches, if any of your athletes come and talk to you like this, you know what they're doing. They are reminding you, I like this, please keep doing more of it. Tip 6, ask for specific help. Again, you know your coach best. Some of my athletes don't feel like they can ask their coaches for specific help. It feels like they're telling them to do their job. So you might not utilize this tip, but depending on the relationship, it can help the coach sort of see that you're really wanting to work through it. If you can say something like, it would be really helpful if you would let me spend a little bit more time on the low beam, or if I can do my series on the mid beam before I go to high beam until I feel really confident there. It's also helping remind the coach that, we have the same goal. We both want me to have my series on high beam. We both want me to feel confident. Neither of us want me to have this fear or block, but here's how we can get there together. Okay, so consider asking for a very specific help. And then last but not least, no matter how the conversation goes, thank the coach for their time and their support. Even if this was super emotional, even if there was maybe some crying, some big emotions, maybe some lack of encouragement from the coach, still be gracious and thank the coach for their time. That will leave everything on a positive note. If it didn't go as well as you wanted, hopefully the coach continues to think about this. They heard the specific help, or they really are seeing that you're trying, and maybe they give you a little bit more encouragement. So these are 7 tips that you can use to talk to your coach about your fear or your block. And for our parents watching, you can utilize these, tell your kids these. So again, this is planning ahead, consider your timing, focus on yourself, highlight what you're doing to work on the issue. This next one is dependent on the relationship, but highlight what's helpful about what they're doing. Also dependent, ask for specific help, and then always thank the coach for their time and encouragement. So by adding in communication with your coaches as part of the process of working through a fear or a block, this can take some of the pressure off of your athlete because they know they're not in it alone and they feel like they have a bit more support. And hopefully these types of conversations lead to not only more understanding, but actual support and action that helps your athlete work through their fear and their block. This is a lot of information and it can definitely be hard, but one of the things that we do work on with athletes in our work together, especially one-on-one, is prepping for these types of conversations. So if you do ever feel like your athlete needs more support, communication, mental skills, all of that good stuff, don't forget we are here to help. We do have free consultations if you have not met with us yet. There is a link to it in the description of this conversation. Thank you so much for your time. Remember, communication is a skill. For all of us, it can be improved on, and encourage your athlete to use these ideas whenever they need to communicate, especially if it's about a tough situation, because the more they utilize these ideas in any situation, the easier it will be in the gym. And again, depending on the age of your athlete, consider how much you can empower them to do the communicating on their own. The little kids, yeah, you might want to go in, stand there with them, arm around them, hold their hand, let them speak up a little bit, and then you support your older kids. You're in the room with them. You let them do the talking and maybe speak up if they, need some support. Your older kids, maybe send them in on their own and check in afterwards. So your athlete's best, your gym, your culture, and your coach's best. But don't forget this really important piece of working through a fear or a block. And if you need anything else, we're here to support you. So thank you for joining our live. If you're catching this afterwards, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave it in the comment section and we will try to circle back and check in with you. Thanks everyone. Have a great day.